Welcome to the Distorted Dialogue podcast from the Metal Institute of Thrashology. We got Chris from Buzzard here, kick-ass doom folk metal with Mean Bone
Uh-huh.
just coming out, man. So excited about it. Such a great sound.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to chat with you.
Yeah, it's a great album, and I don't know. I can't get enough of Darkness Wins. I really like the contrast of everything, the light, the dark. Just
Uh-huh.
can't get enough of it. And why don't you tell me what inspired you to, go down this path?
Okay, well, I grew up on Sabbath. That was my first musical infatuation. We sold our soul for rock and roll, and even from the beginning, you have the socially conscious lyrics, "War Pigs," "Into the Void," "Masters of Reality," that whole album. And then I ended up getting into folk music because of Bob Dylan in particular. And I was on the fence about the voice, and I get all that. But what clicked for me was the album Freewheel and Bob Dylan and the song Masters of War, which is the song that taught me that folk music can be badass.
Okay, I'm
Just
gonna look that one up then.
driving minor key groove, all you Masters of War. And the last verse, he's speaking to like the military industrial complex. And the last verse is, "I hope that you die and your death will come soon. I'll follow your casket on a pale afternoon, and I'll watch while you're lowered into your deathbed, and I'll stand over your grave and make sure that you're dead." I mean, talk about doomfolk, man.
Yeah.
So that's what hit me up to that aspect of folk music. And then also on that album, Talking World War III Blues, which
Okay.
has that sarcastic sense of humor. It's this post-apocalyptic dream that he's having, where he's walking around a blasted landscape of the world and making snarky comments. And it's very funny, but it's cynical, but not in a cheap way, and kind of like this wise, grizzled survivor of Armageddon way.
So I just interviewed Serith Ungol before this, and we talked the literature a ton.
Okay.
And
That's,
so I'm a big Vonnegut fan, Kurt
oh,
Vonnegut.
absolutely, of course. And
So
so it goes. And so it goes.
oh man, such a good author. I was in the Marines in Slaughterhouse Five. I discovered it in the Marines, and it like
Yeah.
really grabbed a hold of me. And I completely understand what you're saying about like
Yeah.
the humor in it, but it's more of a cynical humor. And
Uh-huh.
I feel your music on Mean Bone really
Yeah.
represents that.
And Vonnegut had that deep humanistic streak, and Scratch is cynic and it's a wounded idealist underneath. George Carlin was like that. Bill Hicks is
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
And the humor is this, it's part of its gallows humor. Like you can deal with the tragedy of the human condition only through this kind of vulnerable laughter, this sardonic, almost angry chuckle.
Yeah.
See, the way you deal with the reality of human existence. Another, quote from Vonnegut that bounces around my head a lot is the question of what the point of art is. And he says something to the effect of it's basically to not be lonely, to see into other people's minds, because it's everyday small talk. We can't touch on these dark topics.
Sure.
But in literature, you can, and you realize you're not alone, that it's not you that's crazy, it's the world. And I always thought it was a beautiful sentiment that's how we feel less alone, is by reading a book, connecting with an album.
And I would like to follow up with that because I was reading some stuff online, and I don't know if it was a post you made or a review somebody made about you, but it had something to do with the effect that you read a lot of. I think his name's Thomas Ligotti,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
and
Um,
I only discovered him. I never read anything, but like I always wanted to, and then I just kind of got away. At the Gates wrote an entire album based off of his readings, if you're
totally.
familiar,
I
and
have it. I have that record. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, so like when I saw you reading it, like I'm a huge
yeah,
At the Gates fan. I
yeah,
was like, oh man, this ties right in. Like I'm in.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And the song "Darkness Wins" is directly inspired by. Well, let me tell you. Are you familiar with the first season of True Detective?
No.
Okay,
Is that a TV show?
watch it. Yeah, the TV
Okay.
show. So Detective Cole, he's in the car with the other detective played by Woody Harrelson. And
Okay.
it's Matthew McConaughey. playing the detective. And he goes on these long soliloquies that are all cribbed from Thomas Ligotti's anti-natalist philosophy book. And by anti-natalist, I just mean like against birth, like against existence. The human consciousness is a horrible cosmic error. And he goes on these long soliloquies that are cribbed almost verbatim to the point of plagiarism from this book, The Conspiracy Against the Human Race. And it really helps set this tone of cosmic pessimism and lurking horror and just, you know, eldritch dread over the show. Unfortunately, at the end of the show, it ends up becoming more of this whodunit, where they like, there's an author, Laird Barron, who memorably put it, they unmasked the Scooby-Doo villain at the end. It kind of popped a hole in all of this atmosphere. They're like, and then we caught the serial killer. And at the end, Matthew McConaughey says, you know, something to the effect of, you know, I know that there's a lot of darkness, but the light is winning. You know, like the light, it was like betraying the whole atmosphere of cosmic horror and pessimism of the show. And I was reading an essay by this author, John Paget, who's another great weird fiction author influenced by Ligotti and a friend also of Ligotti. And he had written an essay that came out in this horror zine, Nightlands, which is through Cadabra Records and Chiroptera Press.
What was it again? I'm sorry.
It's called Night. Well, it's tough to get, but what you should check out is, besides these authors, check out Cadabra Records. They put out spoken word albums of all these authors, including H.P. Lovecraft and Mark Samuels.
Sure.
And other horror authors. And in the essay, John Paget basically said what I was saying before, that the end of that first season was kind of deflated, and this idea that Detective Cole would say, but the light's winning, like this false note of hope at the end. And that's when the song started. I was reading that essay, and it just popped in my head, like, well, no, duh, the darkness wins. Like, the light is not winning. And I was like, grabbed my guitar, and that whole song was written and recorded in maybe 4 days.
Man, I tell you what, you hit a home run with that one.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Yeah. I call it the Queensryche syndrome. Like every time, like you could have 32 albums, but I'm listening to Operation Mindcrime every time. So
Right.
like,
Right.
I go to like, oh, I'm gonna listen to his whole album, and then I just go back to Darkness Wins, and it's just such a powerful contrast. I think that's what makes your music so relatable.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Powerful.
Thanks. Well, that's the story. Kind of got the data dump, all the names and connections, but I mean, that's what it's, you know, so engaging. Like, my favorite part of making music, it's that creative process of discovering an idea. You stumble across a quote, you're listening to a riff here. I mean, on the one hand, I grew up listening to Candlemass and Trouble and Sabbath. So these riffs are just simple. They're simple. They're super simple, just kicking around in my head. And then there's weird fiction and horror, and just a way of thinking about rhyming, and you get inspired, and it's fun.
But do you think the simplicity is what makes it? I think the simplicity is what makes it better, because like, not to take anything away from like Dream Theater, but their stuff is just too much for me. It's just over complexity.
Well, there's a difference between simple and simplistic. Someone said that to me once. It's always stuck in my head as a way to frame it. That simplistic is when it's dumbed down, or you're pandering, or you're missing the mark. But simple, it's really hard to be simple. And I don't know if, to the degree to which I pull it off, I can't tell. You know, that's for someone else to judge. I can't be objective about it. But definitely where I'm coming from, I'm trying to hone an idea down to its essence. So there's nothing extra, but it still has enough to it. So it's not simplistic. It's not dumb or boring. I mean, you know, your mileage may vary, you know, different lists for different things from guitarists and different kinds of music. But been thinking, like, one way I think about riffs is they're kind of like folk melodies. Like a Sabbath riff, there's really so many variations. It's a certain type of riff. And you don't judge a Sabbath riff over whether it breaks new ground, or is pioneering, has a new harmonic invention or weird type signature. It's got everything, plus it's one little idea, one little twist, one little piece of personality, an imprint, a variation that's just a little bit your own, but it's still within that template. Just like a folk melody, there's only a handful of really strong folk melodies, and every folk singer steals it and tweaks it. You steal it, you tweak it. So to me, riffs are like folk music, folk melodies.
Right, but I think with Sabbath and like the same strength comes in like because it's simple, not simplistic,
Yeah.
it would it would be relatable to a wider audience
Uh-huh.
and it allows the product to be that much heavier. Like I love thrash metal, like and
Yeah.
so you even heard the punk songs I send over. There's
Yeah.
speed. I like
Yeah.
fast speed.
Absolutely.
But with your sound, it was so different to me. It took me back to those days of Sabbath because you have heavy doom and distortion feel
Yeah.
to it. And the folk was so different to me that I was like, oh, this is something so new that I felt like I was discovering something
Mm-hmm.
because it was something too old to create anew. And it was like so great to me that I discovered this to appeal to new flavors.
But to me, a lot of doom is ancient sounding.
Yeah.
It's a sonic context to tell an ancient tale. Someone's like a Dio song that starts in dun 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 dun. I don't even sometimes I'm not even quite sure what he's singing about, but I'm hooked that he's telling a story. He's like gathered around the campfire. He's got the galloping rhythm. Maiden does that too.
Yeah,
Dun,
yeah, yeah.
dun, 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 dun. Like I'm there. It's a narrative. It's like inherently narrative. The
Yeah.
music and Sabbath is like that too, and that's what folk music is. It's a template. It's fairly simple, but you inhabit the template with your message, with your story, with your verbal shenanigans.
For
If you're
sure.
going to be funny, you're rhyming. If you want to be profound, you're trying to paint a picture. You got something you want to get off your chest and work out is therapy. You've got that.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
just like blues music. Blues music, technically simple, but 99% of blues music fails or struggles or is boring because you've got to have the soul. You've got to have the message. You've got to understand why you're singing it.
Oh, yeah.
Um, yeah. So Sabbath is like that too. I mean, which Sabbath is? It's like basically blues music where you took the flat at fifth and rather than bend in and out of it like in the blues riff, you nail it as the devil's tone. You just lean into that tritone, that
Yeah.
flat fifth.
Yeah.
And that's the famous devil in music, right?
So when you wrote this album, obvious it was released what, early this year or late no, November?
About a month ago, almost it was April 11th. April
April
11th.
11th. Okay. So you were writing this last year.
Yeah.
This is much prior to the times that we were in. And apparently your music was like a foreboding of the times to come. Um, I've talked to a lot of Canadian artists who
Uh
feel
huh.
similar to you. And it's kind of neat to see like people from different walks of life in different parts of the world under different, experiencing the same but different feelings. And I just wanted to know, like, where did you come up with this at? Because this would like fits perfectly. Like the timing couldn't be much better for your music.
It's funny you say that because like since the last election, some of the songs I've written, but like I got a new batch of songs that make these songs sound like they're just beating around the bush. Like,
Yeah,
how do you really feel about it? Well, let me tell you. Like,
yeah, yeah.
so um, I definitely keep responding to what's happening. I don't know. I guess it's hard for me to speak to that on the inside, except that I feel like what we're experiencing now has been experienced by humans time immemorial. Like there's a cycle of oppression, struggle, political conflict. These are age old conflicts,
Sure.
uh, and sometimes I'm responding to something I saw in the newspaper. Sometimes responding to something I came across in a history article or a podcast, or as just free association based on world weary observation of several decades.
Sure.
So I, I'd like to think that the way I write about this balances um, timeless insights and observation more than proselytizing. I, I don't know how it comes across to some people. I don't want to feel like I'm preaching. I don't not above casting judgment from a superior position on humanity or society. I'm in it. I'm guilty of the same foibles and prejudices as anyone. But at the same time, I hope there's a little gallows humor comes in there, a sense of absurdity, a sense of genuine rage and vulnerability mixed with a certain sarcastic chuckle at times. I'm hoping all of that comes, especially over both the albums.
Yeah.
One is the angrier record, and heavier compared to Doom Folk. The first one had a few more whimsical one. Funny enough, the first one, which is just coming out on vinyl, Doom Folk, this Friday. So I should be plugging that. There's a song Death Metal in America, which I actually first started writing after the 2016 election. That was my first processing in song of what happened in 2016. And it's not a lot of stuff's on the nose. There's a few lines, but a lot of it is just experiences going. I don't know if you've ever had this experience, but you go to an early show at a venue where there's a metal show, and then they switch over and there's like a techno dance party or something after. And so like all the metalheads in black shirts are shuffling out.
Yeah.
And then all the meat market's coming in.
Yep.
Like the next shift's coming in. And I was just thinking of that. And so, but also outside of the context, the wider context of social disintegration of blue states and red states, left and right, and also interclass warfare. Being a folk musician, I've spent a lot of time in circles that shudder at the thought of going to cattle decapitation shows or death metal shows. And
Sure.
some of it has to do with class, quite frankly. You know, I grew up in Binghamton, New York. I feel like I kind of straddled a line. I went to a pretty working class high school. I ended up going to a very small liberal arts college. So kind of seen both sides of the fence. The Americana, and the song I mentioned, Americana connoisseurs, they're kind of looking down on the working class Joes, but I'm also like, but I've been on the other side of the fence as well.
Yeah.
So,
I work for the government.
yeah.
I went to the Marines right after high school.
Yeah.
I went in '99, and then I remember I was in when 9/11 happened, and
Yeah.
that was really. Now I grew up listening to punk rock and metal,
Yeah.
but I like the metal was I didn't understand. I think most of the metal politics I didn't understand till later in life. But the
Yeah.
punk is so in your face that I grabbed onto that immediately.
Yeah.
And so when I got in the Marines, it was really weird because I already had a viewpoint of like you should question authority, like why?
Hmm.
And so like it didn't really work out for me in the Marines. So that's why I ended up getting out. Like it went well, don't get me wrong. But
Interesting.
yeah, and so like the whole time in the Marines and like as the war kicked off and then I started seeing some things versus other things and I started thinking to myself, like everything that I thought was patriotic and wholesome isn't as wholesome as I really thought. And then it's like, well, why did I even think that? Because your whole job is to get paid to go kill people. And you're
Yeah.
like, how wholesome can that be? And then it started me on this path.
Yeah.
But like I know I sent over the House Rotten album for you to
Yeah.
listen.
Yeah. I've been listening. I was just listening to that today in the car. Yeah.
So they're from Pittsburgh, and I
Huh?
bought a CD from them like in the 90s. And I had maybe it was early 2000s, and I had a big poster of a soldier kneeling. And it was saying like question authority, like
Yeah.
sometimes the questions are better than the answers, or something along the lines of that. So I had it laminated and I hung it up. It was like a 7 by 5 foot poster. And I hung it up in my barracks. And every week they came in and cussed me out about it, but I refused to take it down
Uh-huh.
because I thought like you're trying to like whitewash everything. And whether it's the Marines, the government, private industry, like you start like as you get older, it goes back to what you just said. Like sometimes I feel like the whole cycle is just repeating. Like we're
Yeah.
back in 1968 with president assassination attempts,
Uh-huh.
civil rights issues, racism, sexism, working class issues. That
Yeah.
was like over 50 years ago. And like how
Yeah.
much further ahead are we now than then?
It does raise these issues of is our notions, especially if you're left to center, of progressing, is it indeed an illusion? And we're the original humans who conceived of the universe, like pre-Christianity, of just a cycle. The sun comes up, the sun goes down, that there is no forward motion. And in a way, Christianity invented progress, ironically, because we think of that as being conservative, but invented the idea that there is an end, there's a culmination, there's a telos, as the Greeks would say. There's an apocalypse, a rebirth, and there's forward motion. But maybe all that's it is.
What?
That the original tribes, you just said, we're going to go around in a circle until the sun explodes, and that's all there is.
Yeah. I started listening to, I'm a thrash dude, so I was listening to Havoc's new EP because I was going to see them in
Uh-huh.
December. And they had a song, and I can't remember, like, but it was to the effect of energy cannot be created or destroyed. And so
Sure.
I started thinking, like, that just,
Yeah.
so I went to the concert, and then the front man, I can't remember his name, but he was giving like a nice little speech about it. And then it had me thinking, like, so what happens to the energy within us? It goes back
Yeah.
into the earth, and then,
Sure.
like, maybe I'll be a brick or a tree or a toaster oven. I don't know.
Uh-huh.
It's just like I really like all that thought-provoking stuff. And so when I read about the Legati and your stuff and like the
Sure.
lyrical content of Mean Bone, uh
Yeah.
like fucking darkness wins, man. But that fucking contrast is so simple, like just light and dark. Even
Sure.
the single album cover you had of it was just light and dark. So
Sure.
everything has you questioning. So, like, if darkness is truly winning, because black holes suck everything in, is darkness winning? I don't
Well,
know, but it's all
well,
shit to think about.
well, it is in the sense that I'm just working on a song as a line. Entropy is not just a good idea; it's the law.
Good point.
Which it is.
Yeah.
You know, that's our best understanding of the universe is that there is an explosion, the Big Bang is dissipating. We all know that the sun is going to explode someday, which reminds me of, a big influence on the doom folk aesthetic would be the singer-songwriter Townes Van Zandt.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a couple songs to start with. One of them is called Waiting Around to Die, which legend has it was maybe, I think, the first song he wrote, or at least among the first song. And just Waiting Around to Die. It's a super short song, and it says what the title is. As advertised, that's what the song is telling you, that's all we're doing. And I remember, it may be apocryphal, but there's a story that he was a real bright, sunny kid. And one day at school in science class, the teacher explained that how old the sun is. And in a certain number of billion years, the sun's going to explode and the earth is going to be destroyed. And this young, vulnerable, sunny-eyed kid, it just suddenly hit him. So this is all meaningless. Like this, and that he never looked back. And I mean, it's a sad story. And I don't want to romanticize his struggles with depression and alcoholism and ended up killing him. I mean, it's a sad story. But that I think is deeply ingrained in really true folk music. Texas troubadours like Townes Van Zandt, doom metal, and bringing doom folk together. I'll say one other thing about Townes Van Zandt. You need to track down the song Marie. Marie, which I would contend is, from at least what I've discovered, the darkest, most heartbreaking, brutal song in the English language. And I'm not, no spoiler alerts.
Sure.
Just take a deep breath, sit down and just follow the story and just inhabit it. And it's brilliantly written. The structure, the language is simple. It's beautiful. It's so deeply humanistic and tragic and utterly devastating. To the point, I shared it with a friend of mine once. We sat and watched it together. You almost want to laugh, which sometimes dark stories are like that.
Sure.
Because they're like a joke gets you by surprising you. Like it goes one step further than you expect, and that's the pleasant shock or surprise of a joke. A dark story like that, or like a horror movie, can be like that because it's just one step darker and more absurdly devastating and brutal than you could expect. And you're like, yeah.
It's funny you mentioned the Waiting Around to Die.
Yeah.
One of my favorite bands is Power Trip. I don't know if you know who they are. They're
Not familiar. No.
if you took like Pantera and Exodus and injected like steroids and
All right.
yeah, like these dudes are ruthless. The lead singer, he passed away. His name was Riley Gale. but the band wrote this song called "Waiting Around the Die," and
Oh,
the overarching theme is like basically like you keep saying you're just hanging around doing nothing with your life. Like let's fucking go, you know? And I
oh,
have
it's more like a clarion call to action, not
yeah, like
not a statement of resignation that that's all there is, and we just need to just be Sisyphus and just climb up the mountain one more time.
my favorite lyric from the entire album is you say the future's your wait, you say the fire's in you, so show me what you got.
Mm-hmm.
You say the future's yours. I say your future's filled with rot just because you're not doing
Mm-hmm.
shit with your life. And
Yeah.
I had a near death experience which caused me to start this. And I chose to do something like
Mm-hmm.
strength wise, like to fight back. Where I have friends who had suffered similar instances where they chose to like curl up and withdraw. And
Yeah.
you know, it's just a different way and outlook. Not one's better than the other, but just one worked for me differently.
No, but you to really muster that inner strength for defiance, you can't stick your head in the sand. You can't
Yeah.
be in denial about what's happening around you. And I mean, denial just ends up being more crippling, actually.
Yeah.
Uh, and I hope I know like the music that I'm making with Buzzard, it's dark. There's a lot of woe and misery, but I hope there's a certain spirit of defiance that comes through there's a voice who's going to look at the truth of the human condition, look in the mirror as well,
Yeah.
call it what it is, but not shrivel away and not like you said in that lyric, not succumb to rot.
Yeah.
Um, either proactively get engaged in politics, even though this isn't punk music, it doesn't quite have that. Like I was listening to Youth Brigade, and that sounds like the party before the revolution, right?
Yeah.
Leftover Crack is more like the Headphones album
Yeah.
where I'm introspecting and it's moments of beauty and tenderness and just rage. And that's Propaganda. I can be like that, like really deep stuff. But like Youth Brigade, House Rotten's kind of like that. This is
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
now we're gonna go do it.
Yeah. Propaganda just put a new album out. I think it was last week or the week before called, I think it's called At Peace. And they
Yeah,
have a song on there called At Peace. I can't stop listening to it.
I just watched the lyric video to that like a half hour ago. Yeah, it's awesome. And it's got a lot of what was been influencing like maybe some future Buzzard stuff. This combination of there's like on the nose political protest. There's some self reflection. There's some vulnerability. There's some almost like uh, therapeutic working out of the conflicting emotions one has, and little like kind of clever little jokes, and also some platitudes that are being stated as a sermon on the mount or a declaration. Where there's other moments where doing just a little, almost like a turn of phrase, like a little, not exactly a joke, but like a clever little line. So it's got all of that pieced together with a real deep emotional undercurrent and an amazing guitar lick, I think, that
Oh,
really lifts the song. Yeah.
what first drew me to them, like I discovered How to Clean Everything first, and it was just like it was the first band that I ever heard that wasn't they were serious, but they weren't like serious. Like they weren't preaching, they weren't
Yeah.
pretentious. It was just great music, and I thought that was a great thing to send over to you.
Yeah. I bought How to Clean Everything. I just got the CD. I love the band pictures on the back. It says exactly. I was thinking the same thing about them. You know, they're taking the music, the message seriously, but they're not taking themselves seriously. And that's always key in life. You can't take yourself too seriously. Like,
Yeah.
uh, that's just basic mental health maintenance.
But I do have to blame Propaganda. My wife blames them for everything that's wrong with me because like I'm outspoken now, like I question
Nothing
shit.
wrong.
But when you're married to me, there's a lot wrong with that, you know?
Well, yeah,
No, we got a happy marriage. I love my wife. She's
yeah.
great. We've been together 22 years. So,
Oh, really? Yeah, I've been together with Lisa about that long.
Yeah, so you kind of know what you're getting at this point.
Oh, sure. Oh, sure. It's a journey of self-discovery, but I didn't know there are so many things wrong with me until
Hell
I
yeah.
actually bounce myself off of. Like, oh, I see. We see some about me, and this kind of maybe explains what I'm doing with music and all that. I mean, I'm an only child.
So,
Uh, I spent a lot of time in my own head,
yep.
uh, and I think that informs like the basic position of the narrators, these songs, and when I'm approaching a song. Um, Kind of an outsider looking in. I've always been kind of alienated on some kind of deep way. I kind of like a sheltered life too. Like I didn't have a lot of friends.
Yeah.
It was a slow matriculation into society, like learning some social skills. Kind of like I was in a rural area. I was a good kid academically. I did well. I was pretty chubby. I got bullied a bit. So I've got some of the anger. A lot of
Yeah.
it's therapy, man. You're working out those times when you're 6 or 7, and there's a kid calling you fat ass, and you're, a foot taller than everyone else. I'm not a tall guy now.
Yeah.
I actually played football in middle school because I was big, weak, uncoordinated, terrible at sports because I was physically big enough. I played football, so I've been on the other side of that fence too. But ultimately, more of like a guy who watches what's going on, it takes notes, and
It took me years to develop that skill.
yeah, well, a lot of it, the creative part, it's the therapeutic aspect of working out um, how, some negative feelings about humanity
But
and
I
the
tell you
world,
what, though, like
religion.
if you're working them out on Mean Bone, I mean, it's honestly it sounds great. And like by
Yeah,
looking at the activity on the internet, like social
yeah,
media, it's getting phenomenal reviews from everyone. So it's not like I'm just the
sure.
outlying.
Thanks. Well, I appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah,
And part of it, there's a lot of joy there, and I hope that that comes across as like striking a balance. First of all, I love to rhyme. I'm a simple man. I just like it when words rhyme and there's like a clever turn of phrase. There's some stuff on there that's not probably funny to most people, but it's kind of funny to me, or just brazen, or just being incendiary or weird.
yeah.
Uh, it's just fun to me. I mean, like I mentioned, being a kid by myself, like I'd be dragged around by my folks. Especially by mom, and I had nothing to do, right? Or in class, I'm not paying attention, just enough so if the teacher calls on me, I can answer. But what I'd literally be writing, I'd be like 8-year-old me. I'd write the alphabet on the top of the page and just write rhymes, and then or just write something sarcastic about the teacher or the classroom
Sure.
or about the football team, or I don't know, a revenge ode against the bullies on the football team.
Yeah.
And my mind still works like that, like working through like rhyming dictionary. I love rhyming dictionaries. I love going through the thesaurus. You'd be like, I got this idea, but I need to sculpt it. And sometimes you rely on the tools of just like, what's the right word? Like, yeah, that's the word. And then sometimes it's coming up with a word that fits the idea. Sometimes it's the rhythm of the line or the alliteration.
Oh, I
Like
love alliteration.
there's
Fucking
like
love
five
it.
alliterations in a row, and I'm a happy camper. I'm a happy man. I'm a simple man. Sometimes that's just fun, and I like the contrast. Sometimes of saying something really dark, but with a clever rhyme, or a poetic image juxtaposed with something that's almost clunky, that's a little in your face and on the nose, and then back off.
But isn't folk and doom kind of juxtaposed?
Yeah,
So like, I mean, just
sure,
even at your like nucleus, you know?
sure. But it's not again. Here, here's a connection I would make. I'd mentioned earlier. Okay, Dylan, Masters of War. There's a driving minor key groove. Take Into the Void by Sabbath. Take that classic riff that Ozzy sings over. Dun, 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 dun. Now
Yeah.
just transpose that to like D minor on an acoustic guitar and strum it. It's a folk. You
Yeah.
could almost switch back and forth between Into the Void and Masters of War. Put those songs side by side. They share a lot of musical DNA. The driving minor key rhythm, the narrative structure of the lyrics, the social commentary. I mean, Into the Void has everything, as environmentalism, as
Yeah.
humanity fleeing Earth because we fucked it up so bad. Uh, it's
Geezer's
got
lyrics
this
are all,
dimension. It's got the cosmic dimension,
yeah.
blasting into space. War and hatred of humanity.
I
It's got
wonder,
misanthropy mixed in. There's not a lot of hope in that song. I mean, it's like pre-Elon Musk is like our only hope is just going to destroy this planet and go find another one to fuck up.
yeah. I just now you have me thinking. Like, I wonder if you take like even like if you have a different pedal or a pickup or something, and you
Yeah.
flip the switch, how much would it sound from like doom to like a brighter sound,
Yeah.
like give it more of a folk feel.
Sure. Sure. Well, I mean, like I said, take Into the Void, basic D minor voicing, or it would work with E minor if you could do it as a bar chord,
Yeah.
with or without the minor third. There's different ways to play it, but it's got that element.
Yeah.
And there's another famous phrase from Dylan. It was actually the journalist Griddle Marcus commenting on the Basement Tapes by Dylan. And the Basement Tapes was really an entry point for me. It's some of my favorite Dylan. Because the thing about being into Dylan, it's not just him. Forget all the put him on a pedestal. He's a gateway drug into the weird old America. That's the phrase that the journalist Griddle Marcus coined. Weird old America. It's dark. It's freaky. It's supernatural. There's a lot of murder ballads, a lot of hocus pocus, a lot of social strife, a lot of bizarre images. Uh,
Today, was that like Tuesday next week?
yeah, right.
Yeah. I
Um,
got a lot of grass to cut tomorrow, so I'm going to do a deep dive into Dylan.
yeah, good. I would say there's a couple of those songs I mentioned, but I think the Basement Tapes, they're funny, they're absurd. Again, that's another theme to circle back. That's part of the lyrical tapestry of Americana. So through Dylan, it's not just about his songwriting genius. It's about getting into blues, bluegrass, country, and English folk ballads, because he's taking a lot of melodies and lyrical ideas from the British Isles traditions of folk music.
Yeah.
So you've got the Kentucky Hills, also in the U.S. Appalachian folk music mingling with Irish and British folk music, and it's a wicked stew. It's wicked.
I'll have to check it out tomorrow. I will for sure.
Yeah.
Well, hey, I hate to cut this short. We only
Yeah.
got 1 minute left.
We
So
never even got to thrash metal. I have like
we'll just do it. We'll do it again next week or the week after.
I wasn't even I wasn't planning on talking about Buzzard that much. I
wanted to push you. I fucking enjoyed Buzzard.
I got my socially aware thrash albums right here.
It's cool. We'll do it next week. We're under a minute. I wanted to thank you for stopping by. I know you're busy as fuck. We're going to do this again.
Yeah. Awesome talking, man.
Yeah.